all remember Megamind, the 2010 DreamWorks movie that became more and more of a gem over the years due to its very unique spin on the typical superhero story. The first movie follows Megamind's journey to becoming a hero. Raised in prison where he's taught the evil habits of the inmates, and as an outcast at school where he learned to embrace his delinquency, Megamind starts his journey as a villain. And it's been him versus Metro Man since literally arriving on planet Earth. However, when he finds himself without a hero and, after falling in love, Megamind realizes that he was only fulfilling the role that society placed on him, and he doesn't have to fit within that box that was forced upon him. And the story ends with us seeing Megamind becoming a hero. Again, it's a refreshing take on the hero's journey, beautiful storytelling, an amazing message, great animation, it's funny and entertaining. The movie never got a sequel, but hey, I'm okay with the way it ended. It ended on a really good note, and honestly, it's just become a cult classic to our generation. Wait a minute. What the hell is this? Ah yes, Megamind versus the Doom Syndicate. I'm sure we've all heard the news at this point. Today, I wanted to look at this movie that I refuse to call the sequel to the first movie. Specifically the things that the director has said, how the audience has received the movie, spoiler alert, not well, and I am part of the people in the audience who have not received it well, and the horrible writing and inconsistencies in this film. That is the number one thing I want to focus on, by the way, is the writing and the plot, and that's for a reason that I'll be explaining. So this movie was released on Peacock earlier this month, along with a TV show called Megamind Rules, unfortunately. No, I have not watched Megamind Rules. I will not be watching Megamind Rules. Y'all can't make me watch Megamind Rules. Now, the crew that was involved in this movie actually seems pretty proud of what they've made. Unlike the first movie, which was made by the movie division of DreamWorks, this movie was actually made by DreamWorks television division, which is why it looks like this, aka bad. Now, nobody is sure how small the budget was for this film. I could not find a source that actually has confirmed this information. I don't know if the people who made the movie knows what their budget was for the film, but director Eric Fogel has said this, quote, "It was all kind of constructed within a TV animation pipeline," meaning that they made the show and the movie at the same time. But that said, I knew we needed to make this thing cinematic and feel sort of epic. I'm so proud what we were able to pull off with a really minuscule budget, but it doesn't feel that way. I think it really feels like a movie. Now, if you make a movie and you have to clarify in an interview and when you talk to people, wow, it really feels like a movie. I'm sorry. I sure hope it feels like a movie. That's what you made, right? That's what you made, right? He goes on to say, and the series carries that feeling. This kind of cinematic quality doesn't stop with the movie, it carries all the way through the series. I'm not sure what cinematic quality he's talking about because audiences would beg to differ. Because Eric, the critic score is currently sitting at 0%. Not a single critic like this movie. And the audience score is not any better. I guess it is slightly better. It's sitting at 7%. So I'm not sure if some people just misclicked in Rotten Tomatoes, but somehow this movie has garnered 7% of an audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes. And that is for a reason, because personally, my biggest problem with this film isn't the really hard to look at animation that is just painful when compared to the first movie. Literally just look at the ending fight scene of this movie compared to the ending fight scene of the first movie. It's just sad. It's just really sad to see. And it isn't the lackluster voice acting either. And featuring Yassified Megamind, if you don't know, they were not able to score, thank God, Will Ferrell for the sequel. So they have someone try to attempt like the Megamind voice. It is not a very good attempt. Again, it's giving like Yas Queen, like Gen Z, like Slay.
You're adorable in a pushy sort of way. Here's a souvenir. It's either a paperweight or a flash grenade, so careful with that.
It's not cute. But no, the thing that bothers me the most is the sheer number of inconsistencies and terrible writing decisions that honestly just make me feel like this was either written by AI or the writing team just didn't watch the first movie in the first place, or they just forgot what they were writing because it's so sloppy that I was literally starting to count when I was watching the movie, and I had to stop because there were so many things that just had me like confused. And the reason why I want to focus on this is because you can blame the voice acting on the small budget, sure. You can blame the animation on the small budget, sure. But the writing, the story, there is no excuse. There are indie filmmakers who can make amazing stories and amazing plots with great dialogue. I don't even touch on dialogue in this video, but don't even get me started on the cheap puns and the jokes that I didn't laugh at. There were too many of those. There is no excuse for this number of writing mistakes in this movie, and so to blame it on the small budget, there's no excuse. So I'm going to lightly go over some of the major plot points of this movie. I will not be sitting here and summarizing the whole movie because this would suddenly turn into a 5-hour like sit down and watch the entire film and parse every little thing that's wrong with it, and I don't have the brain capacity for that. So I'm just going to lightly go over it while also saying the problems that I have with these certain little points in the process. And again, I will not be even scratching the surface of what is wrong with the plot and story. So the movie follows Megamind as a hero encountering his old superhero gang, the Doom Syndicate. They still think he's a villain, so he lies to them and kind of plays along until he can figure out a way to defeat them because there's so many of them, which he does ultimately do in the end. So the story starts a couple days after the first movie. They make this very apparent with a little flashback sequence, and it jumps straight into a very poorly animated crime fighting scene. After he defeats these goofy looking villains, Megamind is at an award ceremony with the mayor, and he is awarded the key to the city. At said ceremony, we meet the character Kiko, who you've probably seen in a lot of the promotional materials. Now, I have a lot of problems with Kiko's character. But one of the biggest problems I have, Kiko is the self-proclaimed president of the Megamind fan club, and as such, she runs a very large social media following basically on behalf of Megamind, which has amassed like millions of followers. Number one, remember, this is 2010. As they said, this is a couple of days after, like immediately after the events of the first movie. She has like an iPhone 15. That is not what people were using in 2010. Newsflash if you weren't alive during 2010, because my God, it's 2024, and if you were born in 2010, you're 14 years old. In 2010, I was using my Nokia phone that is literally shaped like a pill, and most people still had, or I don't know about most people, a lot of people still had phones that had like little keyboards on it. Did anyone else have like a keyboard phone like during that time? I was also someone who didn't really get a smartphone until like high school, like a good smartphone. So maybe that was just me. But yeah, that was what people were using. So how the heck is she doing video live streams, getting like 4K content? She must have alien technology. Number two, the most subscribed to YouTube channel in 2010 was Ray William Johnson with 176,000 subscribers. How does Megamind have millions of loyal fans? Like y'all, in the trailer of Megamind Rules, the show, there's literally a video of like Megamind like playing guitar or something, I forgot. And that video has 6 billion views in 2010. I'm not sure if this is just a fan club. Is this a cult? Or is this a religion at this point? The religion of Megamind? Because there's no way with like an international following. Like, but moving on with the plot, this broadcast with the key to the city being given to Megamind was shown at a prison, and at this prison is the Doom Syndicate, which they seem to think that Megamind has tricked the city into thinking that he's a hero so he can enact his like great villainous plot, and they also take it to be the signal. So they break out of prison because they could have broken out of prison the whole time, but Megamind has apparently told them to lay low in prison and wait for the signal, which he never was planning on giving them. He just wanted to apparently shake them off. And so they break out and basically go to track down Megamind. Now, my biggest problem with this is that at the end of the movie, they get sent back to prison, except they don't get locked into any like special containment or like special cuffs or anything like that would take away their powers. So what is stopping them from escaping again? Like, this is what I mean by sloppy writing. Like, that is a major inconsistency and it just doesn't make any sense. That really bothered me. Also, if Megamind was in prison, which in the first movie, it's made a point that he has gone to prison a lot. He has like what, like 80 something life sentences or something. Like, have they not run into each other? Like, I'm a little bit confused. I do know Megamind kind of had his own like little solitary thing, so maybe that's the case, but still, it's moving on. And so before going back to prison though, there's this really, I was gonna say big fight scene, but it's a very poorly animated and lackluster fight scene. If you've watched any other videos about this movie, you know a lot of people have touched on the ending fight scene and how disappointing it is. And the whole moral of this movie is to not work alone and to work together. So Megamind, with the help of his gang, which is like Roxanne, Minion, and Kiko, even though they help, they really don't even do anything, defeat the Doom Syndicate. Just a quick question, because they go through a lot of motions to defeat them. They like make little gadgets with tennis balls to like beat them. They like get a fire truck to run into them. Where's the Black Mamba mech suit? I don't know if that's what it's called, but you know that like suit that he had in the first movie where he fought Titan with? And it's literally at the end, I think it's holding like a giant boom box. Like, where is that? I feel like that would have helped quite a bit with their fighting, but it is nowhere to be seen. And honestly, I feel like this is just indicative of their small animation budget. I think it was so small, they could not get a model for the mech suit. Well, to be fair, they also really didn't have the budget to change the clothing and attire of a lot of their characters. They're literally wearing the same thing throughout the entire movie, so. And some final things that I hate because I just could not be bothered to recount the rest of this movie. But number one, they changed Minion's name to Chum. And they did this, Eric Fogel said this in an interview, because he said he didn't want him to get mixed up with the Illumination minions, you know, like the Despicable Me minions. I don't know about y'all, but I really wasn't getting them mixed up at all. But sure, as you see, I'm still calling him Minion. I'm not calling him Chum. Number two, in the first movie, it is very clear that it's Megamind and Metro Man. As I said, this is a rivalry they have had since the beginning. Literally when they're both fleeing from their home planets, which are being destroyed. Literally every moment of their lives, it's just been the two of them. So when did Megamind have the time to have this little side quest to then go form a villain squad that's so like significant enough in his life that they literally like love him? It just doesn't make sense, and it really does not make sense to Megamind's character. Number three, Megamind puts rockets under the entire city. Like, he basically has dug this giant trench under like a large portion of the city to fulfill this giant scheme that he has to launch this part of the city into space, to land on the moon and like start a new society or whatever. Where was this in the first movie again? I feel like if it was a scheme that was this big, it would have been mentioned. He would have tried to do it or something. Like, it really just doesn't make any sense. And also, it's completely functional. There's nothing wrong with it. It never has any malfunctions. Like, it's a perfectly function. It doesn't make any sense. And lastly, Megamind and Minion once again have like a beef moment. You know how like it is in movies where like there's two characters and they kind of have a fight at some point and they break off for a little bit and then they make up and then like, you know, it's all happy. This happened in the first movie already with Minion and Megamind, and they made up in the end. And so when this happens in this movie, it literally happens at the beginning. So you're telling me within the span of like 4 days, they had 2 fights and had a breaking off sequence? Like, it really just makes me feel like the writers forgot that this movie took place like a couple days later. Like, they were writing this with the thought that this was taking place like in 2024, not in 2010. And not only that, but this is the only moment that Megamind is truly like alone. Kiko is loyal to Megamind throughout the entire movie. Roxanne is also by his side throughout the entire movie. Megamind is never really alone. So in terms of this moral, like, you don't have to work alone. Like, it feels very cheap. It doesn't feel convincing, compelling at all. And even with Minion, like, he is ready to go back to Megamind. He's like begrudgingly leaving Megamind. Like, he doesn't want him to be alone. So again, not very convincing, not very compelling, which really does lead me to my overall thoughts about this film. But before I get into that, I will shamelessly plug, if you have enjoyed this video so far, I am trying to get to 1,000 subscribers so badly, y'all. So if you're enjoying this, please consider subscribing, leaving a like, leaving a comment. All those things really do help the algorithm. I'm a struggling tiny YouTuber out here, so all those things will be really appreciated. But as I was saying, this all leads me to my biggest gripe with this film. Not only is it incredibly sloppy with a ton of inconsistencies in the plot and honestly just moments of what feels like lazy writing, it just feels like the writers were not interested in telling a more compelling story, where they completely ignored all of the character arcs and felt like they kind of just destroyed a lot of the really well built up points from the first movie. Like this whole like never having to work alone. It's like a good message, but it's so lazy and overdone, especially with superhero movies, which is like everything against what the first movie was, which was a unique and refreshing take in this genre that's so oversaturated. It really just adds to the feeling that they wanted to make a really quick movie that like literally like parents can just put on the TV and slap on in front of their kids and hey, give the kid a phone in the process, and hopefully that kid is distracted enough so that parent can finally walk away and get on the phone with like PG&E and finally be in peace so they can call and quietly yell about the electricity bill that's way too expensive. They are clearly not in the business of storytelling, and that is so sad considering that DreamWorks has been behind such like a rich number of films with beautiful stories and really amazing things. Literally what they're coming out with this year, like I think it's called Wild Robot. Literally I was about to cry when watching the trailer. It literally looks so good. That is DreamWorks. What is this? This is not the DreamWorks I know and love. Like all of their stories usually have such a deep message while also being super unique and entertaining. For me, like a movie that I grew up with DreamWorks, that, or even just a franchise I grew up with DreamWorks that I think really touches on this is Shrek. I don't know if you were expecting me to say that, but Shrek, it's written for kids, yet it has so much depth as well, because yes, kids are capable of understanding deeper messaging. Wow, what a shocker. Despite its like current meme status, I love how Shrek has this messaging of redirecting your life goals or your life path, especially if the thing that you originally kind of like fell within is something that society had forced onto you due to stereotypes or societal norms and pressures, which honestly I guess is pretty similar to Megamind. While I hate the whole like Megamind used to have a team like plotline because it just doesn't make sense to his character, at least if you're gonna do it, this is how I personally would have done it. I would make Megamind completely embrace his new hero status in the face of the Doom Syndicate. He's not pretending, he's not trying to be a villain or whatever with them. He doesn't lie, he is a hero. And because he had this whole character arc of becoming a reformed villain, someone who used to be evil because society said he had to be evil, and he became a hero even though those pressures were something that existed, he believes that the Doom Syndicate could be the same way. These are people that used to be close to him, and he feels like they can also go through this arc of being renewed and being good despite previously being evil. But in the end, the Doom Syndicate and the members, they don't want to change their mind. Maybe they could have it that a couple of them do, but some of them just don't want to change their mind. And I think this would have a really nice lesson of not everyone could be saved. And that's something you really don't see in like kids movies and messaging nowadays. And you have to save your energy and not overextend yourself trying to save someone so desperately that does not want that help. It would also have a really good underlying moral, which is that even though you had a friendship or even a friend group or even a romantic relationship that was good for you at some point in life, you had really good memories, you had good times, past you was happy with those people. Just because past you had those good times, it doesn't mean that the group of people or that friend or that relationship is good for you in the present time. You outgrow people sometimes, and that's okay, and you have to just learn to let go. I think that would have been a really cool direction to see But just abandoning the whole team thing in the first place, because again, that is not his character, I'm honestly at a loss. I don't know. I feel like, again, I was really satisfied with the first movie and I never really saw this being a sequel in the first place. And so if you have thoughts on what you think Megamind's character would have looked like after the first movie, let me know in the comments, because I'm really curious to see like what people think would have been next for his character. But overall, it's really sad to see that this was done to the Megamind IP. This completely ruined a well-written story, character, and movie just for the sake of using a familiar IP to make another cheaply made movie. In my opinion, this is just another unfortunate byproduct of the streaming wars. And there are many of these companies that are basically doing the same thing, taking franchises that people know and love and making these mass-produced, not well thought out movies and TV shows, taking advantage of the hype around these intellectual properties for the ease of marketing. Because if people already are familiar with these things, if people already know they exist, and then you just announce, hey, there's a sequel for so-and-so thing coming out, people will automatically talk about it. Because you don't actually have to put any effort into the good writing or into the story if there's a familiar name or property attached to the thing that you're writing. At least this is what they think in their eyes. I just never thought in a million years that this would happen to Megamind, and it's so sad that they ruined such a perfectly good thing. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching me give crap to this movie, consider subscribing and leaving a like, because again, both those things really do help me, who is a tiny little creator. I'm gonna go and try to find a movie that's actually enjoyable to watch so I can cover it, because I feel like I need to recover after watching such a terrible film. Again, I barely scratched the surface. It is impossible to make a like compact video with the number of issues with this film. But hey, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see y'all in the next one. Goodbye.